All right, I'm going to go first. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Let's talk about IJEEP first. So IJEEP is the International Journal of ePortfolio, and I'll give you a quick tour. We'll also have time for you to ask questions, swing some ideas by us, those sorts of things at the end of this presentation. So write down ideas and whatnot while we're talking. The mission of this journal right now is pretty general, to encourage the study and practices and pedagogies associated with ePortfolio in educational settings. This journal was launched back in 2011 at Virginia Tech initially. It's now an AAC&U journal. This is currently the executive board of the journal. So Eddie Watson and I are the co-executive editors. Nathan Hinton is the managing editor. He's also at AAC&U with us. You can see the associate editor and assistant editor there. We work as a team with kind of the heavy lift of the editing tasks. But there's also an incredible review board and advisory board, all sorts of people that work together.
And Jessica, your side's not forwarding.
All right. I thought it clicked and it didn't click. There we go. That's the slide I meant to show you. So here's the executive board. Next up, a little bit more detail-wise about the journal. It's a blind peer-reviewed journal. We typically publish twice yearly, about April and about October, but that varies based on, when we have the manuscripts all ready to go. It's an open access journal, meaning that the electronic versions of the articles are all freely available online to download as PDFs. If you're interested in print versions of journals, I'm not sure who still does that, but if you are, we have some of them available, but they are not free. You would pay, but it's a pretty minimal fee. I think the most expensive one I remember is maybe around $10, and some of them are maybe $4. We only carry them up to year 2022. We're no longer doing that. The next issue will actually be released soon, and I'll tell you about the exciting updates soon as well. And this is the important stuff now. We are seeking manuscripts in 4 general areas. Instructional articles, so that has to do with teaching, learning, applications of ePortfolio. So anything teaching and learning, pedagogy based, we love to see those. Assessment articles, so think about ePortfolio focused publications that also have an assessment purpose as a primary focus. Technology, policy, and management articles, that can include a range of topics that are associated with technologies that enable and support the breadth of ePortfolio use in educational settings. So this is sort of a catch-all, but it's still focused on technology, policy, and management. Think about narratives of the technology specifically that you used and iterated on, developed for that particular program. Innovative ePortfolio support practices, business models that you used, institutional policies, faculty development, all those general ideas. And then we have the distinctive article category, which includes manuscripts that are relevant to ePortfolio in educational settings that don't fit into the other categories conceptually, but do fit within the general mission of the journal that we would also consider. And in those cases, we've, for instance, just come up with a new subheading on the publication page for that one. Instead of, instructional or assessment, we would just develop a new subheading for that particular article. Generally, these are about 10 to 25 double-spaced pages. That's about what we expect. We've also published the occasional book review. Those are typically shorter in length, of course. So the exciting update is, this is our current website. You can see this very state-of-the-art computer on the home screen and everything. We will have our new website released very soon. We are in the final the final phases of crossing all of the T's and dotting all of the I's for the website. And along with that will come the next issue. So 13.1, volume 13, issue 1 will be released along with it. It's all finished and ready to go. We're just waiting until we cross those T's and dot those I's on the website for that issue to be released. And we'll do so as soon as possible. So keep your eyes out. If you are interested in getting your hands on that issue when it comes out, and you would like to join the listserv that we have that's only for when an issue is released, just send us an email at ijeep@aacnu.org. It's very simple, IJEP@aacu.org. That's our new email address as well. Anything you see on the old website is just that, it's old. So just use the new email addresses now, and we'll update everything else very soon. We were trying to get it updated for today, but we didn't quite get there because of vacation schedules. Couldn't quite make it. It is summer after all, and is what it is. So moving right along. Here's some stats about iJeep. We've had a whopping 554,170 articles downloaded, according to the website. We have usually it's about a 33% acceptance rate. I did the math yesterday and it's exactly 33.8% right now. That's 405 manuscripts that have been submitted for review to date, and 137 manuscripts have been accepted. That includes the upcoming 13.1 issue. We also have published 4 editorials. So our call for manuscripts is on a rolling basis. We accept manuscripts anytime. We do have deadlines for specific issues, however. So December 1st is the next deadline we'll have for a specific issue, and that's for the spring 2024 issue. The last deadline was June 1st for the fall issue. So we've already received a number of manuscripts that we've been reviewing for the fall issue. Regardless, if you have a manuscript ready, submit it. You never know. Even if it doesn't make it to the fall, it might make it to the spring. Again, also, if you're interested in becoming a reviewer, and you want to receive an email when an issue is published, send us an email. I'm sorry, I didn't click again. I thought I clicked and I didn't. Here's the email address right here on the screen. In order to become a reviewer, you would end up connecting with Nathan Hinton, the managing editor that I mentioned earlier. He'd probably take a peek at your CV and get a little bit of information about you and your expertise with ePortfolios. So if that's something that you're interested in, we would love to connect with you and have you become part of our review board. So please do reach out. We have very recently been going through our lists of reviewers. And if you have been a reviewer in the past, you probably received a message from us recently asking if you wanted to continue. So we are in the process of revitalizing that list. If you're interested, reach out. We would love to hear from you. Moving along again. And then the last little piece that I'll mention, and I'll talk more about this next week, if anybody here is going to be at the in-person conference, this is one more resource that we have at AACNU. So let's say you have a great idea. It's not quite a manuscript. You're not ready to publish it yet in iJeep or AEPR, but you would like a resource for kind of getting all of your ducks in a row. Check out Pearl, which is our publications on ePortfolio, the archives of the research landscape. This is basically a website that it's where we have put all of the peer-reviewed articles that focus on ePortfolios in educational settings that we have found. We have included links to wherever they reside, be they open access journals or to whatever their publisher is. So if you don't have access to an institutional database, then there might be a paywall for some of those articles. However, we have put them all in there, including their abstracts. We've also categorized them based on what type of paper they are, if they're just descriptive in nature or if they are research studies, those sorts of things. If you're writing a lit review, it's a really great resource. For instance, if you're building a program and you don't know what somebody's done, for instance, you're interested in measuring metacognition with ePortfolios, type in metacognition in the advanced search and give it a go. And with that, I'm going to pass it right along to Candace.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. And just to note that I've been putting some of the links that have been on the presentation in the chat. So you should be able to find that there too. And I will also give you access to the presentation as I go along. So let me introduce you to the publication. Oh, yeah, wait, one more back. The publication of the ABLE ePortfolio Review, or what we call AEPR. You'll note this publication is a little like a magazine, and it is aimed at practitioners. And with that, I will ask you to move forward now, right as you take a sip, Jessica, of course, to introduce our team. Oops. Our editor-in-chief, who is actually here, Samantha. Samantha, say hello from Radford University.
Hey everyone, I'm homesick, so I'm not going to talk much.
Yeah, but we're glad she's here and I can refer back to her. Our executive editor, Cindy Stevens and Russell Stallings, are not able to be with us today either. We have several people who have served as our managing editors. They kind of go back and forth because it's a really big job. We have an excellent design and production person who makes beautiful copy for us. And then an AP, what's always really important is an APA style editor. Kara Hood serves as that. And I serve as a social media editor because I love social media. So I just get to talk to people about AEPR all over the place, and also the ABLE board liaison. And as I was saying, AEPR is sort of set up to be more like a magazine. It has, I think, beautiful covers. Each of the issues focus on a topic typically, though we sometimes have open calls. You can go ahead, Jessica. And our vision is, similar in many ways, I think, to IJEP, but again, maybe a little bit more focused on practitioners than on direct research. We are a peer-reviewed journal, but not a blind peer-reviewed journal. And the audience is really geared towards practitioners and administrators and students. And we select, we actually encourage articles about a wide variety of issues. I think what makes us unique, and I will talk about that in a little bit, is our collaborative editor and author approach that we do. And our editors actually kind of help shape the final article and hopefully improve it as we move through that. We are published twice a year also. We have a spring-summer edition and a fall-winter edition. We used to have 4 editions. I don't know how we did that. Now that we're down to 2, it seems like such a big task, but we do 2 right now. Again, our issues are typically based on a theme selected by our editorial team. And the fall winter edition is always dedicated to the ABLE yearly conference. So I really do hope folks that are presenting either in the online forum or in our face-to-face conference in a couple weeks, that you will consider writing an article for AEPR for this upcoming edition. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our approach. When folks submit an abstract, and we decide to accept it, the author is paired with an editor who has multiple conversations over time about the article. We actually do ask people to submit a brief abstract first, and then have a first draft that then gets reviewed by the editor, and there's discussion about that first draft until it is finalized. The authors also work with a styles editor to make sure it's in a format that we can use for the publication, as well as an APA editor to get all that worked on it. We spend a lot of time proofing, and it goes through our full team as we move towards publication. Because this is an official publication of ABLE, it goes through a board review, and so we get feedback from the board also. And then at the end, we have a second full team review, making sure we get all the right punctuation, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Great. And we have our ABLE website, which I have put into the link so that you can look and see what we have done. It's actually part of the ABLE website, and you will see all of the additions on that website. And next. Great. And I encourage you to look for AEPR on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I typically post calls for papers as well as alerts for publication. And just sort of some statistics. Since 2016, we have published 10 editions, and we have an average of 7 to 9 submissions for each issues. We've actually only rejected 6 articles, so we're not as highly competitive as IJEP. But part of that is I think we have this collaborative work with editors for our authors. So it's actually a great venue, I think, for people that are new to publishing to kind of get their feet wet and get some mentorship in doing publications in an academic journal. And oftentimes the rejections are invited for future editions based on the theme. Again, we kind of take pride in working with our authors and helping them kind of get to the place where it is publishable. And we are also looking for involvement from our community. And in doing so, there's several ways that you can get involved. And I'm going to put the email on here in the chat of our great executive, our great editor-in-chief, Samantha. We meet actually bi-weekly. Sometimes it seems like we don't really need to meet, but we like meeting with each other. And so we do that. We meet with each other to get these 2 editions out. We are also always looking for review and copy editors also. So if you have interest in that, please reach out and email Samantha. And again, her email is in the chat as well as in this presentation. And now I think we have an opportunity for us to have a conversation about our publication and how you might get involved.
I did want to take a moment to mention that as faculty for the Institute and ePortfolios, I've worked with teams over the years, and I just hear them talk about their process throughout the year, developing their ePortfolio programs, their trials and tribulations, their successes. And every time I envision the manuscript that they could write about that process. And so what I always like to encourage is tell your story. because it's helpful to others. And if you've been there on the front lines trying to develop your ePortfolio program, you know that you've looked in the literature for other similar programs. And it can be a way of paying it forward while also bulking up your CV. And I can also mention that one thing that we will do at iJeep is understanding that, you know, many of our authors are not educational researchers. They come from a variety of fields, and educational research or, you know, this type of writing is not quite what you're accustomed to. We'll work and mentor those authors and work with them through that process. The reviewers that we work with are very good at providing constructive and supporting comments, and the editors will also provide guidance and closer guidance that I think you would receive at some other journals to bring that paper to the point of publication. Understanding that it's a journal that's going to take people from many different fields, not necessarily education.
Great. We've got some ideas for you to give us some feedback and some questions. Thinking about the likelihood of you contributing and maybe some suggestion for content or themes for both of our journals, or any questions that you have about publishing with either of our journals or
We
about.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you
we
want
do.
to, Candace, or it
Oh,
says,
great.
can you publish a work in progress in AEPR and then in iJeep? So that's a really good question. You can absolutely publish one iteration in AEPR and then publish in iJeep, for sure. You would just have to be careful about self-plagiarism. Like that would be the one piece, is you would have to write things in a different way when you published it in iJeep, because AEPR would own the way you wrote it in AEPR, and then iJeep would own it in iJeep. So that would be the one thing to pay attention to, but you can certainly do that. Amy.
Hi, thanks all so much for this session. I wanted to selfishly promote the Digital Ethics Task Force and their interest in hosting a special issue in AEPR. And so if you're planning to come to Vancouver in person next week, please join us for the workshop, where we are going to actually start imagining ideas and outlining and drafting a submission for AEPR. If you're not able to come in person, we're going to have the same event offered virtually in September, and we'll make sure to get that information out to all able members. But just a little shameless self-promotion there.
I was also going to make a comment. I think AEPR for beginning projects and talking about what it is that you are planning on doing, or sort of initial lessons learned, would be really appropriate for AEPR. And then as you move forward to doing more formal research, an article about it, an article about your project in iJeep might be appropriate. So kind of a stepwise kind of progression makes some sense to me too.
Day 3, 1 to 4 p.m. Pacific time for the AEPR workshop. Teresa, I'll put another plug in. I'll be talking next week as well, a little bit more in depth about iJeep and the Pearl website and just resources, also the Institute of ePortfolios that AAC&U has to offer if anybody's going to be here attending. Also, since we have a little bit of time, something that might be useful is if you have an idea for publishing and you want to throw it out there, this is a good place to throw it out there to get feedback from some people who are editors, and also people who are engaged in similar work that can provide feedback. And I see some stuff in the
Yes, there are. Amy, to your question, we have oftentimes have people write first person accounts of projects that they have been working on. And I would say it's maybe Samantha can make a comment about this, but I would say probably half of our articles sort of have traditional evidence-based, things that require an IRB approval. And half of our articles are ones that probably don't require that.
I think that's probably pretty accurate, Candace. I'd have to sit down and go through every issue.
Yeah.
But yes, and sometimes it's almost it's definitely practitioner accounts of what's working on their campuses. And we also have things like action planning worksheets, frameworks, those types of things are also included in AEPR.
We have quite a bit of that as well in IGEEP. One thing that you can do is you can talk with your IRB at your institution and say, do I need an IRB for this? Because you would be surprised at what you don't need an IRB for. For instance, like assignments from prior classes, as long as things have been de-identified, it's not connected to a student. Sometimes you don't even need an IRB for that. So just check with the office about the specific data you have, even if it's data. And see if an IRB is even necessary. Also, just to encourage you that you don't need data to publish. You can just tell a story. We publish tons of descriptive articles in both of these journals. They don't have to be studies, though I love research. You can also storytell. Costanza says design-based research could be in scope, and IGEEP absolutely. Without a doubt. We're very open to methodologies. It's an international journal and it's also interdisciplinary. And feel free to shoot the IGEEP at aacu.org an email, or me directly an email if you have questions about a specific idea, if you don't want to share it in a conference session attended by 60 something people. Don't hesitate.
I will say one thing I really like about kind of the magazine presentation of AEPR is that you can do creative things with it. Colleague and I gave a lightning talk at last year's conference, and we were able to kind of use our slides as a way of kind of introducing an article about the same topic. So lots of visuals, lots of pictures. So it's kind of fun that way.
Not a content question, more administrative. Are there any plans to provide DOIs for the articles to make them more discoverable? Christina, we have looked into that. For IGEEP, we don't have any solid plans at the moment, but it is something that we have kept our eye on, what the process would be. So it's a perhaps for IGEEP.
I'll let Samantha say something about that.
I think that's a really great question. I cannot remember it coming up in any of our discussions of the editorial board for AEPR, but it's certainly something we can follow up with.
Well, we may give you all extra time for lunch or for a late afternoon break.
And we can also hang out here if somebody wants to hang back more in a small group scenario. We can kind of stick around for a few minutes. If some people want to drop out and go take a break until the next session.
I will actually be, I'm the host for the next session too, and I'll leave it open. So we'll be here. I'll probably get something to eat, but I'll be around. Thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate you being here, and we hope to see your submissions shortly.
Yes, thank you very much.